What up, YouTube? What a great morning we're having here. It's beautiful outside finally here. And I've just been keeping up with the media lately and following the election process last night. We saw Joe Biden pretty much take the Democratic nominee away from Bernie Sanders in kind of like in a landslide victory, in my opinion. And then just right now, it's 9:21. They just announced that Mike Bloomberg dropped out of the race, and he is going to be backing Joe Biden. That is, I mean, that pretty much just seals the deal for Joe Biden to this point. I mean, I don't really see how Bernie Sanders is going to compete now. I mean, even if Elizabeth Warren drops out and now supports Bernie Sanders, which will probably happen, I just don't think that she has enough momentum and enough supporters to really capture enough audience to kind of sway them from Joe Biden at this point. And obviously Mike Bloomberg has so much money to fund Joe Biden, which I think them too. I don't think he should be his running mate, but just supporting him in general with this campaign is going to be monumental. Joe Biden, I think, has only spent he hasn't spent nearly as much as Bernie Sanders has on his campaign. Bernie Sanders has spent already like $500 million, and Joe Biden has spent, I think what I heard was like a quarter of that, so still about $100 million, but you know, he has not depleted his resources, we'll just say that much, and at his disposal, you know, previous President Obama has not yet come out and endorsed his campaign yet, but I think he will in the coming months. I believe Obama will come out and actually verbally endorse his campaign and support him against Trump. I just think that he's been withholding because he didn't want to possibly hurt his campaign. You know, sometimes previous presidents endorsing campaigns can be somewhat divisive. Obviously, if like somebody like George Bush, who is not really an advocate of Donald Trump, went out and advocated for Joe Biden, which would be super unprecedented, but it may hurt his campaign just because George Bush, you know, isn't fundamentally still somewhat divisive and somewhat of a topic of discussion for a lot of people. Some people don't like him. He's got a lot of critics on both sides. And so, you know, just previous presidents supporting a candidate can be good or it can be bad, but I feel like Obama, since he was his vice president, him endorsing his campaign will do nothing but good, and I foresee that happening in the next, I would say, 3 months. Actually, by May, I believe he will come out and, if not sooner, May or sooner, he'll come out and actually give his stamp of approval on his campaign, actually come out and probably to his rallies and advocate for Joe Biden. Especially, you know, he has somewhat come out against Trump a few times. Obviously, they go at great lengths to basically let each party know that they don't like one another, which is completely understandable. However, I feel like Joe Biden, well, I mean, he is, in my opinion, the best candidate. I mean, I kind of said that from the beginning, that he was going to be their nominee, and I felt like the other candidates were kind of a waste of time. Not really. I liked a few of them. There were some really good redeeming qualities about a lot of the candidates, you know, and I appreciate a lot of the standards and things that Bernie Sanders was advocating for. I appreciate a lot of the things that they were trying to move forward, especially with the progressive movement. You know, it's interesting stuff, and I feel like in the future, that is kind of where our country is going. I just feel like at this moment in time, we're just not there yet to have that progressive kind of leap, especially going from one spectrum to the other. I know Donald Trump has kind of reformed a lot of our government and removed a lot of bureaucracy, and going from one spectrum to the right to all the way to the left to socialism. I mean, are you crazy? Like, I just don't see that being anything good for our country total, you know, as a whole. You know, it just seems so vile for our country. Now, if we went to a moderate president, like let's say we went to a president like Joe Biden, I feel like that's a good middle for our country. And in the next, 15 to 20 years, if a progressive were to come up like Bernie Sanders, I don't foresee Bernie Sanders running again in 5 years from now. I don't, how old will he be, like 80 years old? Yeah, that's I just don't see him running again and actually having a good chance. So if another progressive candidate were to come up through the ranks and run, I would say in the next 16 years we will have a actual progressive president. So those of you who are upset maybe that we're probably not going to have a progressive president right now, just stay patient. I mean, I'm sure it'll come around. Your time will come. The ebb and flow of government is always left and then right and then left and then right, and then our country kind of just stays in the middle. That's just how democracy works, but I think that the last 4 years haven't been terrible. I feel like I'm not pro-Trump, but I'm kind of like anti-Trump. I feel like his critics go at really, really long lengths to discredit him, and he says this barrage of attacks, and it's kind of distasteful to me. I don't like that people verbally like abuse the president. So he's so like, they're so harsh, they have such harsh words against him. And granted, he has a mouthpiece on him, so he does say very, very controversial things, and obviously that's just how he is. But again, not pro-Trump, but I'm anti-Trump people. Like, they kind of piss me off in a way. It's like, like everything he does is terrible. It's like, no, actually, not everything he does is terrible. He hasn't been as bad as people come out to say that he has been. I mean, though he hasn't really been challenged, there hasn't been like a crisis scenario to where his leadership skills have been put to the test, kind of like how George Bush's leadership skills were put to the test during Katrina, or Ronald Reagan, JFK. Like, those presidents have actually, their leadership skills were tested under their presidency, and they proved themselves. George Bush, obviously, the latter, not so much. In a crisis scenario, we saw that with Katrina. But I feel like Trump does have the confidence and the ability to lead our country through a crisis, and that's kind of why I do believe in him or advocate somewhat for him. But at the other spectrum, you know, I'm still open to voting for Joe Biden, which is crazy. You know, I don't, if he were to go into office, I feel like I'd be comfortable with him in office. Like he just seems, to me, he just seems like a good leader. Though, you know, there is some corruption, I guess, with his sons. You know, there's a whole lot of things that you can dig up dirt on an individual, especially with somebody who's been in politics for as long as he has. I mean, you don't have to dig very deep to find any real dirt on him, you know, so that makes sense. So I'm just, you know, I'm keeping an open mind still. You know, I can't wait to see the debates between them two. It'll be interesting. It'll be, I would say, kind of fun to watch, you know, and come election day, when it comes down to it, and it may come to the day of voting where I'm like, okay, I'm going to vote for this person. I'm pretty excited. So anyways, share your thoughts on the whole thing that's going on right now, please, in the comments below. Thank you guys, I appreciate your time, and I'll be updating you all with new things that are happening, I guess, in the politics realm. Thank you, and have a great day.